Welcome to the Curious Minds YouTube channel. Today, we're really going to dig into a story that's, frankly, deeply disturbing and just full of questions. Jeffrey Epstein and his island.
Yeah, and we're not just here to go over the same old headlines you've probably heard. We want to look at some aspects that often get missed, or maybe deliberately obscured.
Exactly. It's this really complex mix of incredible wealth, unchecked power, and let's be clear, very credible allegations of horrific crimes.
So our goal today is to unpack the information we have, stick closely to the facts as they've been reported, and importantly, stay away from speculation or, taking sides politically.
Absolutely. This is about looking at the details themselves. And if you're finding us for the first time, please do hit like, subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives, and let us know your thoughts down in the comments.
Okay, so the plan for this deep dive. We're aiming to break down 10 key aspects of the Epstein case. The idea is to sort of map out this intricate web of power, money, and alleged crime.
Hopefully giving you a clearer picture of a story that's often just, well, it's sensationalized and confusing.
Right.
Okay, so let's jump in. Point number 1. Who really was Jeffrey Epstein? Because his start seems pretty ordinary, doesn't it?
It really does. Middle-class family in Brooklyn, didn't finish college, then he's teaching math at the Dalton School in New York City, a very prestigious place.
Which is the central mystery, right? How do you go from that?
Exactly. To managing billions of dollars for the absolute elite. It's a leap that's just shrouded in mystery. There's almost no transparency there.
None at all. Where did the money actually come from? You can't find client lists for him. No standard hedge fund records.
But he owns private jets, multiple luxury homes, New York, Florida, Paris.
And of course the island, Little St. James.
Yeah. The sheer lack of clarity about his finances just, well, it begs so many questions. His biggest known client, or maybe patron, was Leslie Wexner.
The billionaire behind Victoria's Secret.
Right. And Wexner gave him incredible control, like power of attorney, letting Epstein legally act for him, and even helped him get that massive $77 million townhouse in New York.
So here's the thing that still hangs in the air. Where did the bulk of his fortune really originate? Was he some kind of front for other people, maybe even intelligence agencies?
Or was it darker, like blackmail operations based on compromising information? We still don't have a clear answer on where the money came from. It's fundamental, but elusive.
Which leads us right into point 2. The island itself, Little St. James.
Yep, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, about 70 acres, tropical, very secluded. On the surface, idyllic.
The name locals gave it tells a different story. Pedophile island.
It's chilling, and it lines up with reports from people who actually worked there. They consistently talked about underage girls being flown in.
By private jet, by boat.
Oh.
Some were apparently staff, but others were just called guests.
And the buildings there. Strange features showed up in architectural plans and drone footage. There was that weird blue and white building with the gold dome.
And all those rumors of underground tunnels, security rooms, cameras everywhere. It seemed built for secrecy, maybe control.
And when you hear from the victims, any idea of paradise just vanishes. They described it as prison, isolation, manipulation.
Abuse. By Epstein, and they allege by some very high-profile guests.
There's that one quote that just sticks with you. He told me I couldn't leave until I did what I was told.
Imagine being underage, trapped there. That's the picture painted by these accounts.
So disturbing. Okay, point 3. Ghislaine Maxwell. You can't talk about Epstein without talking about her.
His closest associate, absolutely. Daughter of Robert Maxwell, the infamous British media tycoon.
And after her father died, under very suspicious circumstances, she moved to the U.S. and basically became Epstein's, his right hand.
And the allegations paint her as the primary recruiter, going out and finding these young girls.
Often using deception, right. Offering modeling jobs, help with education, sometimes just starting with offers for massages, things that might seem legitimate initially.
Victims describe her as normalizing the abuse, sort of teaching them how to please Epstein.
And some allege she participated directly in the abuse as well. It's incredibly grim.
She was arrested in 2020, convicted in 2021. 5 counts, including sex trafficking of a minor.
But here's a major point of controversy around her trial. Despite being convicted for facilitating this whole thing, the client list, the men who allegedly used these girls, their names largely stayed out of it.
Which feels like a huge missing piece. Which brings us to point 4. The Little Black Book.
Yes, Epstein's infamous Black Book. A key piece of evidence, or at least a key exhibit in this whole saga.
Hundreds of names in there, right? Celebrities, CEOs, politicians, royalty.
All sorts. Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew, names like Elon Musk, Bill Gates. They're all reportedly in there.
No, we absolutely have to be clear. Being in the book doesn't automatically mean someone did something wrong.
No, definitely not. But, and this is a big but, many of those names also showed up on the flight logs for Epstein's private jet.
The so-called Lolita Express.
Exactly. And some connections are more documented than others. Bill Clinton, for example, reportedly took over 26 flights with Epstein.
Including trips to Africa, and there are allegations he went to the island, though he denies any wrongdoing.
And Prince Andrew's name just keeps popping up in connection with Epstein?
It raises that fundamental question again, doesn't it? Why were so many powerful men associating so closely with a known, convicted sex offender? What was going on?
We still don't have the full answer to that. Okay, point 5. Let's go back to 2005. The Florida case.
This was the first major investigation, wasn't it? Started when a family reported Epstein abusing their 14-year-old daughter.
Yeah, and investigators gathered a lot of evidence. Testimony from dozens of girls, photos, diary entries, even evidence of payments. It really looked like a solid sex trafficking case.
But it ended with that incredibly controversial plea deal. A secret deal, basically.
Right. He pleaded guilty to just 2 minor state charges, served only 13 months in a county jail, and even got work release.
Allowing him out of jail for large parts of the day? It's astounding.
And the U.S. attorney who oversaw that deal was Alexander Acosta,
who later became President Trump's labor secretary. He resigned over the controversy surrounding this deal.
A key part of the controversy was that the victims apparently weren't informed about this deal, which might have violated federal law. And the deal didn't just protect Epstein.
It protected potential co-conspirators too, right, by shutting down the federal investigation.
Exactly. It essentially swept a much larger potential conspiracy under the rug, according to critics.
Okay, fast forward. Point 6, the 2019 arrest. Things finally seemed to catch up with him.
Yeah, after years of investigative work, especially by reporter Julie K. Brown at the Miami Herald, he was arrested again.
And this time it was federal charges. And they seemed much more serious, involving many underage victims.
The evidence laid out was extensive. More photos, recordings, they found safes with cash, diamonds, even fake passports with his picture but different names.
And crucially, this time he was denied bail. The judge ruled he was too much of a flight risk.
It really felt like, okay, finally, justice might actually be coming.
But then, point 7, Epstein's death.
August 10th, 2019. Found dead in his cell in Manhattan. The official ruling, suicide by hanging.
But almost immediately, the circumstances raised huge red flags.
Oh, absolutely. You had malfunctioning cameras right outside his cell. Guards who were supposed to check on him reportedly fell asleep and later admitted falsifying logs.
And his cellmate was transferred out just hours before he died.
Plus, the autopsy itself wasn't straightforward. Broken bones in his neck.
The hyoid bones, specifically.
Right, which some experts, including a pathologist hired by Epstein's own brother, said were more consistent with strangulation than a typical hanging.
That pathologist famously said he'd never seen those injuries in a suicide.
So you can see why public skepticism was and remains so high. The whole hashtag Epstein didn't kill himself thing took off for a reason.
It leaves that massive question hanging. Was it really suicide? Or was he silenced to stop him from naming names? We just don't know for sure.
Which connects to point 8, Prince Andrew and the allegations against him.
Right. Virginia Giuffre has been very public, alleging she was trafficked to him by Epstein and Maxwell when she was just 17.
And there's that infamous photo. Andrew, Juve looking young, and Ghislaine Maxwell in the background.
Andrew denied it forcefully at first. Said he had no recollection of meeting her. Claimed he was at a Pizza Express restaurant on one specific night she mentioned.
His BBC interview about it all? Well, it was widely seen as a disaster. It backfired badly.
Huge public backlash. He was eventually stripped of his royal duties and military titles.
And he later settled the civil lawsuit Giuffre brought against him for millions of dollars. Importantly, though, without admitting any guilt.
And there's been no criminal trial. His involvement remains this kind of unresolved, deeply troubling issue.
Moving to point 9, Maxwell's trial again. We touched on this, but it's worth emphasizing.
Even though she was convicted, it felt like the full picture wasn't revealed.
That's the feeling many people have. The client list stayed sealed. Those videos reportedly found in Epstein's safes, not shown. Any alleged blackmail tapes, not discussed.
So she gets a 20-year sentence, which is significant.
But compared to the decades of suffering described by the victims, And crucially, no powerful men faced charges because of her trial.
Which leads us to the final point, point 10, the bigger picture. Is this network really gone just because Epstein is dead and Maxwell is in prison?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? We've seen a couple of other arrests, like Peter Nygaard, Jean-Luc Brunel, who died in custody.
But many others whose names have come up in connection with Epstein and Maxwell remain free, untouched.
It makes you wonder if the system, instead of breaking down this network, actually worked to protect the powerful people within it.
It's a deeply unsettling thought that this wasn't just about one or two bad actors, but something much more systemic.
And for the victims, the fight for real justice, for full accountability, is clearly still ongoing.
So wrapping up this deep dive, I think the main takeaway is that the Epstein story isn't just about Epstein. It's potentially about a whole system that enabled and protected abuse on a horrifying scale.
Yeah, the details are disturbing, the questions are profound, and honestly, it demands that we keep paying attention and keep asking for answers.
We really hope this breakdown has helped you navigate some of the complexities. We encourage you to keep seeking out credible information and think critically about this case.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today.
Please do share this if you found it valuable, and make sure you're subscribed so you catch our next exploration into complex issues here on Curious Minds.